Hello, my name is Thomas Arnold, and I will be discussing the environmental impact of container ships, in particular looking at their local, regional, and global effects. On the 23rd of March, 2021, a ship the size of a skyscraper blocked the Suez Canal. This was a container ship named the Ever Given, and it remained lodged in place for a total of 6 days. This disrupted trade on a massive scale, illustrating exactly how critical maritime shipping is to the global economy. I decided to study these container ships further from the perspective of environmental conservation and climate change science. Container ships are seagoing commercial cargo vessels that transport all of their goods in standardized shipping containers, and they include some of the largest ships in the world. About 90% of the world's non-bulk cargo is transported by container ships. The largest container ships are over 400 meters long and can transport over 20,000 shipping containers at once. The benefits of maritime shipping are significant. It is a very efficient, reliable, and economical means of transporting cargo. The benefit of using the standard shipping containers is they can be loaded on trains or trucks to be moved across land without unpacking them. These elements together mean that container ships have been influential in developing the modern level of international trade. Last but not least, compared with other shipping methods, cargo ships have relatively low CO2 emissions. A ton of goods can be shipped over 7,000 miles from Melbourne, Australia to Long Beach, USA by container ship while releasing fewer CO2 emissions than the same goods transported 1,000 miles from Dallas to Long Beach by truck. That being said, this enormous industry has a very significant impact on the environment. Let's look at these effects at the local, national, and international levels. The San Francisco Bay has become home to many invasive species, and one of the more troublesome is the overbite clam. Believed to have been brought from Asia to San Francisco in the ballast tank of a container ship, it has thrived in this environment and consumes phytoplankton at a tremendous rate. This limits the growth of a foundational organism in the San Francisco Bay food web, which means there is less food to go around overall and fewer organisms will be able to survive. Ambient noise off the coast of California has also increased as shipping increased, contributing to a phenomenon known as sound pollution. A study by the University of San Diego found that underwater ocean noise has doubled every decade since the 1960s. While its effects are still being studied, it has been shown to disrupt wildlife behavior, including their breeding and migratory habits. On the other side of the continent, there is a whale species called the North Atlantic right whale that is highly endangered. The biggest threat to this whale is collisions with ships. It is naturally buoyant, so it has a hard time avoiding approaching ships. This is simply a small part of the much bigger problem of marine animals being harmed by strikes from container ships. Meanwhile, last year off the coast of New Orleans, the container ship CMA-CGM Bianca lost a container full of plastic pellets. These pellets spilled into the ocean and have contributed to plastic pollution in the Gulf of Mexico. Plastic pollution gets eaten by wildlife and harms them. This is just one example of many instances of cargo loss from container ships that have a negative impact on the environment. The impact of climate change is becoming more severe, and it is projected to get worse as time goes on. While container ships may technically be very fuel efficient, they still tend to use relatively dirty fuel. Unfortunately, the container shipping industry contributes to the worsening trend of climate change through the release of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and sulfur oxide. Unless more sustainable practices are introduced, the container shipping industry is expected to produce 1/5 of the world's carbon emissions by 2050. The environmental impacts of container ships, as well as of international trade generally, are clearly substantial. Fortunately, fuel efficiency is in the industry's best interest because it reduces their overhead costs. Many shipping lines have developed strategies to reduce the amount of fuel they consume. One of these is a practice known as slow steaming, in which ships travel at only half of their top speed in order to save on fuel. Another strategy is to use the use of large kites that use the wind to pull a ship along. Because this allows ship engines to operate at reduced power, these kites can reduce fuel costs for shipping lines by 10 to 35% annually, which translates to less fuel use and fewer carbon emissions. Unfortunately, the fact is that large amounts of international trade activity will always have some negative impact on the environment, at least with the technology available today. The best we can do for ourselves is to reduce our reliance on manufactured consumer goods so as to reduce the demand for shipping overall. Container shipping has been one of the most influential factors in the modern trend of globalization, and the gross output of the industry is over $183 billion. Despite setbacks due to COVID, this industry is more likely to continue to grow than not. The best we may be able to do for now is to simply reduce the harm it causes to our planet. Thank you very much.